Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Jason Cohen, and I'll be your host for today. A few reminders presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams. Please refresh your browser. If you are using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/securitywebinars. Closed captions in several languages are available during the live broadcast. You can enable them by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on the Ask a Question button. Be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. We often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, ms/Azure Sentinel community. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. You can do so at aka.ms/securitywebinar feedback. We'd also like to get your feedback on the topic of vulnerability scanning. Please fill out our survey at aka.ms/vulnscan, and you can influence the direction we take in this area. And by the way, all Q&A window. I would also like to invite you to join our public community by visiting aka.ms/securitycommunity. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews at aka. Review our product roadmaps, register for events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. In today's session, Sylvie Liu will take us through Fusion ML detections with scheduled analytics rules. Sylvie is a senior product manager with the Azure Sentinel team. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to her. Sylvie, the floor is yours.
Thanks for the intro, Jason. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. So today's topic will focus on Fusion. In the webinar description, we talk about the topic is focused on Azure Sentinel Fusion ML detection with scheduled analytics rules. So here's a quick agenda. I will start with a quick overview of Fusion, and then we will go into the main topic, Fusion ML detection with scheduled analytics rules. I will give you a demo on how to set up the analytics rules so they can be leveraged by Fusion, and I will also quickly show you how to investigate a Fusion incident with scheduled analytics rules. So there's a new topic because we've also recently released Fusion detection for ransomware into public preview. I'll take a bit time to talk about this new addition to Fusion as well. At the end, I will have some time for Q&A. So that's the full agenda for today's session. So first, let's take a quick overview of Azure Sentinel Fusion. In Azure Sentinel, we have 4 key capabilities: collect, detect, investigate, and respond. Machine learning is applied throughout Azure Sentinel capabilities. For Fusion, we specifically focus on detecting those threats that are otherwise very hard to catch and to minimize the false positives using our ML algorithm. And you can then also investigate these threats detected by Fusion with an interactive attack graph, which makes you help you to quickly respond and take actions to these threats. So that's the key capabilities within Azure Sentinel. And now let's take a look at how Fusion detects the threats in your environment. Fusion uses graph-powered machine learning to analyze activities across multiple cloud services. So within your Azure Sentinel workspace, you might be receiving thousands of anomalous signals every day. These are the security alerts. These are potential anomalies, right? Fusion applies graph-powered machine learning analysis and probabilistic kill chain to help you find correlations between these anomalous signals and identify hundreds of suspicious candidates. That's the first step. That's still a lot, hundreds of the incidents every day. Once we have these suspicious candidates, we want to make sure we are surfacing the real threats to you. So we apply additional ML analysis to identify and trigger those high severity and high fidelity incidents into your Sentinel workspace. So these Fusion incidents are by design, high severity, high fidelity, and low volume. We're hoping to leverage our machine learning model to help you reduce alert fatigue and to make sure you can catch the real threat. So on the right side, it's an example of the incident within your Azure Sentinel workspace. So all the anomalous signals correlated by Fusion are low fidelity signals. Those are the signals that your analyst may not have enough time to investigate every day because the volume of the alerts and the security events in your environment could potentially be very high. With Fusion, we can leverage our machine learning model to process this huge amount of security events and help you find the real threats that could be easily missed. And then you can also free up your security analyst for more strategic work. In the meantime, after your analyst investigated each Fusion incident, we take the feedback from your analyst and use this to train and improve our machine learning model. From this perspective, whenever you close a Fusion incident, we strongly encourage you to provide feedback and, if possible, additional insights to help us improve. Fusion takes alerts from supported data connectors as you see on the screen, as well as the raw logs from Palo Alto networks. In Azure Sentinel, Fusion is enabled by default, so if you have these data connectors configured for your workspace, you are all set. Currently, Fusion detection covers 122 predefined scenarios. You can find these scenarios on our product page. Within these predefined scenarios, there are 32 scenarios that's leveraging 8 specific scheduled analytics rules. So that's the part we will talk about more in my later slides. One thing I want to mention is that the Fusion team is also working on supporting more scheduled analytics through in our Fusion detections. I'll talk about what additional scheduled analytics rules covered by Fusion when we get to the ransomware detection part. Also, later this year, we will have new Fusion releases covering even more data sources, including anomalies and all the scheduled analytics rules with tactics information. So keep an eye on our new releases. We will announce it when the new feature is available. So now let's get into the details of Fusion detection with scheduled analytics rule. For these scenarios, we released Fusion detection with scheduled analytics rules into public preview back in May. If you have created and enabled these 8 scheduled analytics rules in your Azure Sentinel workspace, Fusion can detect 32 new scenarios by combining alerts from the 8 scheduled analytics rules you see on the screen with alerts from AMCAS, Microsoft Cloud App Security, or AADIP, Azure Active Directory Identity Protection. So you can find all these scheduled analytics rules from the rule templates under analytics blade, except the last scheduled rule you see on the screen. That's a rule for new admin account activities. For this one, you can find the rule, like essentially the KQL query, in our Azure Sentinel GitHub. There's instructions in our Sentinel documentation. It's under the how-to section, showing you how to create a custom analytics rules with a KQL query. So I included the links to these resources at the end of the presentation deck. You can check out after the session if you're interested in creating new custom scheduled analytics rules in your workspace. So on this screen, here is a full list of the 32 new scenarios with the scheduled analytics rules. Again, we have the full list in our announcement blog and also on our Fusion product page. I have the links in the resources page at the end of the presentation. So we have a good amount of scenarios for scheduled analytics rules with MCAS and scheduled analytics rules with AAD-IP. So you can find the alerts we leverage in each scenario here in the full list. So I've talked about what scenario we have. So now I want to give you a quick demo to show you how to set up the analytics rules so they can be leveraged by Fusion. And also, like when we have an incident triggered based on the scheduled analytics rules and the MCAS or AAD-IP rule alert. How can we investigate an incident like this? So let me pull up the Azure Sentinel workspace. So first, let's see how can we create and enable the scheduled analytics rules. So first, I will go to the analytics blade. You can see active rules and rule templates here. So for the 7 of the scheduled analytics rules currently supported by Fusion, you should be able to find them under the root template section. So let me use the multiple password reset as an example. So you can see we have a root template for this specific scheduled rule. If we look at the status, it shows it is in use, which means we already have an active rule for this root template. Now let's actually go back to the active rules and find the one that we have already enabled. Okay, so this is the active rule. So let me click the edit so we can see the details within the scheduled analytics rules and see what's important. So for here, you can see the name for the scheduled analytics rules. You can rename the scheduled analytics rules. It will not impact whether Fusion will be able to pick it up. So you can feel free to rename the scheduled analytics rules based on your need. Another thing here is tactics. So for the rules that you created from template, it comes with tactics. So if you have configuration for it, or if you have updated the tactics, make sure you double check it here because the tactics information is important in Fusion detection, and we will leverage the tactics information in determining the stages of attack. So make sure you have the tactics information configured correctly. And then if we go to the next step, here's the main query for the scheduled analytics rule. And under here, you can see a section called entity mapping. So one thing I want to highlight is that entity mapping is important when it comes to Fusion detection, because Fusion correlates alerts based on entities, such as user account or IP address. The ML algorithm cannot perform alert matching without the entity information. So I want to highlight here that it is very important that you can review and configure this section. So again, if you create this from template, it should already have the entity mapping. If you are creating a custom scheduled analytics route from scratch, make sure that you configure the entity mapping section so this route can be picked up by the Fusion machine learning algorithm. And then let's go to next. So on this page, the incident settings and the alert grouping, the configuration will not impact the Fusion detection. Our Fusion algorithm will take all the alerts generated from the supported scheduled route into consideration, apply ML analysis, and only trigger a high-fidelity incident. So if you disabled creating incident from scheduled route, it only means it will not create incident for this rule. It will not prevent Fusion incident from being triggered. And then once you configured the tactics information and have reviewed the KQL query, and also configure the entity mapping, this rule is ready to be used and picked up by Fusion. So now let's move on to take a look at the incident that's generated by Fusion. I have an instance open here. So this is a Fusion incident that's leveraging the alert from the scheduled analytics rules that we just configured, multiple password reset by user. And it is correlating the scheduled analytics rule with an alert from AADIP. So pretty much this is an incident indicating the scenario that showing you impossible travel to atypical locations, leading to multiple password reset. So you can see both anomalous signals are related to the user GFL and from the same IP address that's from Ireland. These are the suspicious signals that you can take a look. For this scenario, it is a possible attempt by attacker to perform multiple password resets for malicious purpose after compromising the user account noted in the Fusion incident description. So this is a potential multi-stage attack indicating two kill chain stages, credential access and initial access. And on the right side of the incident, you can find the timeline for the two underlying alerts, as well as the kill chain information. Here you can see these two alerts happened on the same day, couple hours apart. And then on the right pane here, you can also view alert details by clicking the Alerts tab. View bookmarks, entities associated in the incident, and add comments. So when you look at the incident, we strongly recommend you to look at both alerts because it's indicating multi-stage attack. If you have seen one of the alerts before, we still recommend you to investigate the new alert just to make sure you have everything taken care of. So sometimes I want to highlight is that Fusion might generate a incident based on a new alert and an alert that has been included in a previous incident. For example, you might have seen a previous incident triggered on the same alert. For example, impossible travel to atypical locations. For this combination with a new alert, it's actually indicating a net new scenario. So if you want to reference to the previous incident while you're investigating this incident, we provide a query in the incident description. So you can pull the query from the incident description and look up the incident that leverage the same alert. So here is an example of the query that we provided in the Fusion incident description. Pretty much you need to enter the alert ID that you think that you have seen and investigated before, and make sure you exclude the current incident that you're looking at. So how you grab the alert ID is to go to the alert tab, and then we have an alert ID for the specific alert. Let's copy that, put it here. And then we also want to exclude the security incident. And then if you want to look for the incident that's triggered on the same alert, let's just set a broader time range to see how many incidents have previously triggered on the same alert. Actually, don't have any. So yeah, so back in May, there are incidents triggered on this impossible travel to atypical locations alert. So by using this query, you will be able to find the relevant incident that's to the Fusion incident. But again, it's a net new scenario. We recommend you to investigate both alerts just to make sure you are capturing the multi-stage alert instead of just one initial access alert. So yeah, that's a quick example about the how we enable the supported scheduled analytics through for Fusion. And when we go back and investigate the incident, you can also leverage our investigation graph. So it's a very powerful tool that you can go in there, look at the relationship between each alert and the relationship between each entities. When you go through these alerts, you can see the information in the timeline to help you better understand the information within each alert and the timeline. And you can also leveraging the information here as well as the entities to do the investigation here. This is a very powerful tool. So when it comes to multi-stage attack, we strongly recommend you to leverage the investigation graph here in the incident. So to learn more about how Fusion works, how the investigation graph works, we have good documentation on our Azure Sentinel product documentation. So go there, take a look. Alrighty, so let's go back to the PowerPoint deck. So now that we've went through the Fusion detection for scheduled analytics rules, I want to talk about the latest release that we have for Fusion. That is the ML detection for ransomware. So for ransomware attacks, it's probably on top of a lot of your mind. Ideally, when it comes to ransomware attack, we want to be able to prevent them at the very beginning. But with the new trend of the ransomware as a service and human operated ransomware, the scope and the sophistication of the attacks are increasing dramatically. Attackers are using slow and stealth techniques to compromise network. The time span could be days couple months, even years, it is really hard to detect them in the first place. So when ransomware attacks happen, time more than anything else is the most important factor in preventing more machines or the entire network from getting compromised. So the sooner the alerts are raised to security analysts with the details on different attacker activities, the faster the ransomware attacks can be contained and remediated. So for fusion detection for ransomware captures malicious activities at defense evasion and execution stage of an attack. So that means we at the stage we're seeing alerts regarding ransomware detected, ransomware prevented, or relate techniques, for example, malware detected, malware prevented, these types of alerts. And then fusion incident, in one given fusion incident, we will show you suspicious activities happen around the same time frame on the common entities. So this information can help your security analyst take immediate actions to disrupt the attack before it is too late, because at this stage you're seeing ransomware and malware activities already. So it is important that you take immediate actions. If usually when your security analysts go in there, collect the evidence, look at the different alerts and try to connect the dots, it takes a long time. It might take hours or even days to collect all the information. When we leverage the machine learning model within Fusion, we will be able to collect the information for you quickly, so your analyst can save the time and instead they can take action when they see the incident is triggered in your environment. So the slide shows you the incident title for the fusion detection for ransomware. All the incident title will be shown as multiple alerts possibly related to ransomware activity detected. In order to help your security analysts quickly understand the possible attack, we want to provide you with a complete picture. So we correlate signals from many different sources, including Microsoft product, as well as signals in network and cloud. Most of these will come from your scheduled analytics rules. So you can see all the supported data connectors on the screen. That includes Azure Defender, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Microsoft Defender for Identity, Microsoft Cloud App Security. So if you have these data connectors enabled, this alert will be taken into consideration by Fusion. In addition to that, we also take all the Azure Sentinel scheduled analytics rules with tactics information into consideration when it comes to ransomware detection. So in the quick demo I showed earlier, when you create the scheduled analytics rules from the template, you have the option to configure the tactics information. So make sure you have that information configured so it can be picked up by Fusion. I know I've talked about this a couple times, but I still want to emphasize this is an important piece of information for Fusion algorithm to work. One thing, so for predefined scenarios we mentioned earlier, we support 8 schedule rules. For the ransomware detection, we can support all the schedule rules with tactics information. So anything, I just want to highlight this distinction here. And then this is a quick example of the ransom detection scenarios from our Fusion detection. So on the screen, you can see we have 5 alerts from Azure Defender, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and scheduled analytics rules. So these 5 alerts were triggered on the same host within 15 minutes. This incident used the Grant Crab ransomware was prevented alert as a seed. And then the Fusion algorithm correlated suspicious activities on the same host to show you possible techniques used by the attackers to compromise the host. So for the first alert, it happened before the ransomware was prevented. Alert, it might showing attackers running malicious activities on your local host. After the ransomware was prevented, it's possible that the attacker continued to perform malicious activities. So for the Emonet malware was detected, the backdoor was detected. These alerts shows you the possible techniques used by the attackers within the same alert. So you can look at these anomalous signals and investigate to determine if this is a true attack within your environment. So in a Fusion incident, the alerts related to like ransomware malware detection, it might indicate that the ransomware or the malware was stopped from delivering its payload, but it does not mean that your environment is completely safe. So we still recommend you to check your machine to see if there's any signs of infection, because again, the attackers may continue malicious activities after ransomware was prevented. Also, it is important that you investigate the entire network to understand the intrusion and identify other machines that might be impacted by this attack. Because for this particular Fusion incident, it is focused on the specific host that's listed in the incident. It does not reflect the status of other machines in your network. So it is very important that you step back and look at all other machines within your network to make sure you understand the steps taken by the attacker and make sure you can stop the attack before they make more damage to your environment. So for here, it is a screenshot from the Azure Sentinel demo workspace. So in this Fusion incident, we have 22 alerts. It correlates low severity signals that were detected around the same time frame. All the alerts were triggered on July 26th, the same day that shows you a possible ransomware attack and the different techniques used by the attackers. Now let me quickly show you the incident in the real Azure Sentinel environment. So here is a ransomware detected incident. You can see the incident title is shown as multiple alerts possibly related to ransomware activity detected. In the incident description, we included the recommended steps we think you can take when you see an incident like this. So we strongly recommend you to look at all the alerts that's being included in this incident, investigate the common entities that we have identified among these alerts, and then review the recommended steps to take actions to understand if this is a true ransomware attack. Once you investigate the incident and close it, we strongly recommend you to provide your feedback to let us know if the incident is a true positive or if this incident is a false positive, to help us understand, are we triggering the right incident in your environment. Also, there is a section for comment. Again, if you are able to provide additional information to help us understand why it is a true positive in your environment and why it is a false positive in your environment, it would really help us to train our machine learning model and help us improve the detection quality. So it is really important if you can investigate the incident and to share the feedback with us. Okay, so we will have some time for questions, and for here on the last page we have resources I mentioned earlier. So if you want to learn more about Fusion, to look at the predefined scenarios within Fusion, you can go to our product site, aka.ms Sentinel Fusion. We have more information there. For the two new releases I talked about earlier, Fusion with scheduled analytics rules and Fusion detection for ransomware. There's also more details in our blog announcement. I include the links here. If you're interested in exploring more scheduled analytics rules and create your own scheduled analytics rules within your workspace, you can go to the how to document and see the step-by-step instructions. For more detection or hunting KQL queries, you can go to our Azure Sentinel GitHub repo to find the queries created by our security experts within the Mystic team. So yeah, here's the full presentation. Do we have any questions that I can help address here while we're still on the call?
Yeah, we've got a also applicable for M365 Defender, new connector including MDE, MDI, MCAS, MDO, created security incidents.
Oh, sorry, Jason, you broke up for me for the first couple of seconds.
Sorry, I'll repeat it. Is Fusion also applicable for M365 Defender, new connector including MDE, MDI, MCAS, MDO, created security incidents?
So Fusion will take the alerts from these providers. So if you have the connector enabled and have the alerts coming from these providers, Fusion will be able to pick up the alerts from these providers and taking that into our ML analysis. If we find correlations from these different alert providers, we will trigger a new Fusion incident in your Azure Sentinel workspace. So Fusion usually combines alerts from different alert providers. For example, we can pick up the alert from MDE, from MCAS, and MDI. If we see correlation, a new Fusion incident will be triggered in your workspace.
Ransomware is a big thing for us, but we struggle to try and replicate this type of attack because it's so aggressive. How does Sentinel know what is a ransomware and how it performs?
So for Azure Sentinel, for Fusion, we focus on the defense, evasion, and execution stage. So in most of the scenarios, we use ransomware was prevented alert at the seed. So when this happens, we want to go out and look for all the suspicious activities that happen on the same host and help you to pull the anomalous signals together. That helps you to understand the full picture. So we have a seed that's specifically focused on the ransomware was executed stage, and then we pull all the malicious activities together to help you understand what are the possible techniques taken by the attackers.
Great, thank you. And then our next one is queries that are supplied in the incident. How often are those updated and new queries added? Can a customer pay more for additional queries?
So for the query included in the Fusion instance, it's a very simple query that shows you how to look for the incident that are related to this specific Fusion incident. If you are talking about the queries that for detection and hunting, so we have those pre-existing queries in the analytics root templates, and if you want to look for more KQL queries that's for hunting and detection, as I mentioned earlier, like we have the Azure Sentinel GitHub repo. You can go there and find more queries created by our security experts in Microsoft.
Great. And the next one is, will the alert ID triggered be different for the same user traveling to a different location?
I'm not sure, but if it's triggered from same scheduled rule, each alert will have a different alert ID. If one user had this performance, have a impossible travel, an alert will trigger. If the user performs another impossible travel, a new alert will be triggered. So the alert ID for the old one and the new one will be different.
Great. Next one is, what are all other anomaly detection, ransom detection in Sentinel?
So for Fusion, we focus on, this is a very new release. I don't think there are other specific ransomware detections within Azure Sentinel. So my teammates on the call, if you know there are other ones, please step in. Otherwise, I think Fusion is the first feature within Azure Sentinel that's provide ML detection for ransomware. Of course, if you have scheduled analytics rules set up in your workspace for detecting possible ransomware signals, that's one way to do it. But Fusion is the primary ML detection hunting for ransomware activities within Sentinel.
Great. Just a couple more. How do you know what rule templates actually supported?
So for Fusion, if it is a predefined scenario, these are the 8 schedule rules supported by Fusion. If you have these rules enabled and have them triggering alerts, these alerts can be picked up by Fusion for sure. If we find a correlation, an incident will be triggered to your workspace. So that's for the predefined scenarios. There are 32 scenarios that can be seen with the scheduled analytics rules. And then when it comes to ransomware detection, so any scheduled analytics rules within your workspace, if it's enabled, if it has the tactics information configured, it can be picked up by Fusion. If there's a correlation identified, an incident will be triggered in your workspace. So that's a distinguishing between the predefined scenarios versus the new ransomware detection.
Great. And how is ML used in investigation?
So in investigation, it's primarily the investigation graph that you can leverage this as a great tool to investigate, visually see it, and find the correlations between the different alerts and entities, and even go a couple layers in depth to find all the related information when you investigate.
Great. And then you mentioned ransomware was prevented as a seed. Where does that initial seed come from?
So this seed can come from any of the supported alert providers. So if their seed came from MDATP, or if their seed coming from your own scheduled analytics rules, these can all be picked up by Fusion. And we are able to use this seed and correlate signals from your entire enterprise to see what are other suspicious activities happen around the same time. What are the suspicious activity that's related to the ransomware was prevented seed. So our machine learning algorithm will go find all the possible related alerts and anomalous signals, do the analysis, and present you the ones that are most related.
Great. And the last one, when would anomalies detection be available in the Swiss region?
I would defer to my teammate on the call for this question.
Okay.
So this is Sharon. It's a good question. I don't have the timeline yet, but definitely is before end of this year. I think it will be sooner, but I don't have exact time window. I will, if you can send the email to us, I will figure it out and give you the exact which months.
Great. That's all the questions we have. Oh, wait, one just came in.
Just to follow up on that a little bit, is that right now, I think the tentative plan is for us to be available there in October, but we can confirm that.
Great, thank you. And last one, what about other types of sources which are non-Microsoft?
So for these non-Microsoft sources, there are two ways. So you can, so if you have those sources connect to your Azure Sentinel workspace, you can set the custom scheduled analytics rules for triggering alerts from those sources. That's one way you can do, as long as you have the tactics information configured and also have the entity mapping configured for those scheduled analytics rules for monitoring the third-party sources. The alerts can be picked up by Fusion, but we're also looking internally to see how can we bring in additional data sources to Fusion, either working with the anomalies team or bring them in as the raw log. For example, for the Palo Alto networks, we did bring in the raw log into the Fusion pipeline. So in short term, scheduled analytics rules will be the best approach to start monitoring and triggering alerts on these third-party sources. In the longer term, not too long, like we are also looking to definitely add more data sources to our Fusion detection so we can cover your entire enterprise network.
Great, and this one just came in as well. Does custom ML also deploy in Sentinel?
I would also defer this question to my teammate.
So can we get a little bit of clarification on that? I mean, like basically SOC-ML, whenever it's available in a location, is automatically enabled, and so those anomalies will be incorporated as a part of Auto Fusion when that goes to private preview.
Great. I think that's it for questions. So I would like to thank you, Sylvie, for being our guest today and for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer questions. At the same time, I would like to any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/securitycommunity. And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. We'd also like to get your feedback on the topic of vulnerability scanning. Please fill out our survey at aka.ms/vulnscan, and you can influence the direction we take in this area. Thank you, and see you next time. Goodbye.